in orange. If anyone needs to get their computer attended to immediately, they were great. They didn't charge a lot, but they uncrashed it and found where the program made it go wrong. So I'm able to join the meeting. I was getting really nervous about that. I see Bill. I see, let's see, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
12.
10. We have 11, 12. Michelle's there on her picture, but do you see more than that? I just see 12.
That's 12.
Where's my? There we
All right,
go.
so we have a quorum. So do you want to get started, folks?
We can.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, we need to be done. So welcome, everyone. Seems like it's been forever since we've got a chance to get together and see each other in person. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:05. Thank you, Greg, for being able to, in one meeting and rush right to another one. So hopefully your select board meeting went well.
Yeah, it
You
finished.
had me
Right, finished right at 6 o'clock. It was short.
Oh, you
meeting.
did good.
Yeah, it was short.
You
meeting.
did amazing. So I was afraid I couldn't get on at all because my computer crashed, and I know you might be running late. So you want to make your announcements, regular announcements about recording and so forth?
Yeah, well, this meeting is being recorded. And do you want me to do a roll call?
Yeah, please. We need to. We have to do a roll call by.
Yeah. So I'll just go around the room here. Steve?
Yeah.
Raina?
Here.
Jane?
Here.
Marilyn? Sorry, Marilyn. I just looked at your name.
Yes,
Bill. You should really look at the face, Bill, not the name.
you can allow me to change my name, but I don't
That's
see
fine.
it here on the screen.
I don't know. Maybe Marilyn's somewhere in the house. Mike?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
Lynn?
Present.
Jen?
Here.
Karen?
Here.
Renee?
Yes.
Alan?
Here.
And myself. Great, thank you.
All right, you'll notice that we have the URL on the website on this agenda, and we're trying to see if there's a glitch. We tried to find it on the Pioneer website as well as the Gil Montague, and it doesn't seem to be that easy to find. So we'll work with the respective people to make sure that people have access to any and all information that we produce, as well as our meetings. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. So we have approval of the minutes for the full board meeting on January 21st. I'll entertain a motion.
So made.
That was Lynn.
Okay, that look Lynn. Is there a second?
Second.
And
Okay, well, Mike.
okay,
raised his
Jane
hand first.
seconded.
All right, Jane.
All right, discussion. Do we see anything that needed corrections? I'm not hearing any, so
Wait, come on, there's gotta be something. I never get it completely right. Come on, people.
I'm not as concerned as, about the grammatical parts. I figured that people could just send those to you, but if it's a substantive change, then, they should definitely bring it to our attention. But grammar changes, I'm okay with people just saying, hey, it should be his instead of hers, or there was spelled wrong or anything like that. All right, so having heard none, I guess you have to do another roll call vote. So all
Well,
those in favor?
We could do that by hand. Raise your hand.
Well,
that's how we have been
you're
doing it.
supposed- All right, I know, and that hasn't been right. So everyone raise your hand first.
Okay.
If you approve them. Okay, so that's unanimous. So that's Greg, Karen, Jane, Mike, Alan, Renee, Lynn, Jen, Michelle, Bill, Renee, and Steve. Okay. So we had some subcommittee minutes that came in, and so I had a chance to review them. I don't know if others have, but that is if the, Mike, do you want to entertain a motion there, and we'll just take care of that quickly?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, sorry. Yeah, and feel free, Karen, to just jump in if I don't see you.
Okay.
Just speak up.
Okay.
I don't mind at all. Anyone does that. I need you to help me out. Go ahead.
Did you receive the education subcommittee minutes?
They're
I
listed.
think they were,
I did not receive them.
yeah, I'm trying to remember if I did.
Yeah, they went out either
Yes, yes,
yesterday
I
or today.
did.
Yeah,
I
we
actually
did.
did. Yeah, I did receive them. I remember that. Yes, I did.
Raina sent them to me and I sent them out to the planning
Yeah.
board.
I received mine.
I did too.
Okay, I'll check again. Usually on other committees, they go out at least 48 hours ahead.
Okay,
Thank
that's a very good point, and we'll see what we can do about that, because you're absolutely right, Karen. Backing up a minute, Greg, did you get my email about Pat? Because I don't see her here, and I think she wanted to participate. Did you send her the agenda, and did she get the stuff? Pat Shearer?
Yeah, I added her to the group email, so
Okay.
she should have received it. Yeah, I
And
put in,
the invite.
yes.
Okay.
I put her new email in and sent it out, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I assume I did. I mean, yeah, I know I did, but I could go back and check the invite.
Yeah, Mike, did the minutes, or I should be asking Lynn, did we get those within 48 hours of the meeting? Because I don't remember when I looked at them.
I sent them early yesterday morning.
All right, do people have any objections if we just hold off on those and do that at the next meeting? But you have a chance to review them, or do you want to approve them now? People
Well,
want to approve them now?
I haven't read the education ones, so I would rather wait on those. Because I didn't look for them in my email since yesterday. I haven't.
Okay, fair enough. So Mike, you want to go forward with yours? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry
You're
about
still,
that.
there we go.
Okay. Assuming the finance subcommittee is ready to move ahead, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on February 2nd.
So
Is there a
moved.
second?
Second, sorry, Michelle.
So Mike made, yeah, okay.
Well, I didn't make a motion. I asked someone to make a motion.
Right.
So I think Michelle.
Michelle
All
made a
right,
motion.
I thought, yeah, I moved him. Thank you.
And
Did Jane,
So-
all of a sudden, did she?
we have a second.
disappear? I'm just wondering where Jane went. She seems to have disappeared. I don't know if she's on your committee. That's why I don't see her here.
I
Right.
don't know, but I wrote them, so somebody else probably should second them.
Right, that's why I was looking for Jane. I wonder if her internet, she had internet problems. Because she was. just
Well,
here.
we don't have a second, so why don't we come back to them later if
Yeah,
she's able to join
let's
us.
hope she comes back.
All right, so I'll put delayed.
I have a question.
Right.
In
Bill,
this instance, why is the chair of the subcommittee requesting the minutes? It should be the chair. Thereby, the chair of the subcommittee could either put the motion forward or second it in this instance. I mean, just because it's our subcommittee's minutes doesn't mean that group has to put it forward, does it? I could be wrong.
No, what they're doing, if I understand this, Bill, is they're just taking the opportunity since they're together in our meeting to, and they have a quorum of the subcommittee, they can, take a vote here to move those forward. They don't have to, they can wait for their regular meeting, if that's your question. The other thing is, Mike could have made the motion, but he entertained the motion, so someone had to,
I understand it's more of a situation of moving from a draft to the actual thing. Is that right, Mike?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's,
Okay, thanks.
it's
I'm sorry.
approval of,
My bad.
well, I mean, you're always moving from a draft to an actual thing, I think. I mean, I'm happy to second the motion if we want to just keep going. Here's Jane.
You're waiting for a second of our minutes?
Yes.
Yes,
I will second it.
okay.
And
Anybody have any discussion?
Oh, my goodness.
they look fine to me.
Okay, I just had one comment. I noticed there was a question on the spelling of Kuzmaskus.
Oh, yes, I should have put an SP question mark.
And you did, actually. And I would say let's remove that, and it is KUS.
Okay,
And other than that, they look fine to me. Nice job, Lynn.
thank you.
So I will ask for those in favor. Roll call vote. Jane Dutcher,
Yes,
Michelle Druso,
Yes.
Lynn Reynolds,
Yes,
Mike Naughton, aye. And I don't see David, so I think that's everyone on our committee. So passed unanimously. Back to you, Alan.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving on, the final consultants report. We had a conversation with Mark and Mike did as well. There were a couple of numbers, but I guess they're not significant and people know what they are. They did change some language things, so we are accepting that as the final report.
Alan,
And
can I just
then-
make one
go
quick
ahead.
clarification?
Absolutely, Mike.
You said there's a couple numbers that aren't significant. I would, I guess I would say that they're significant, but we know what they are. So we can ignore the numbers in the report and go with our numbers. They're the charts. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know chart 50 is one of them. There's 3 other ones. They basically provide 4 different scenarios for suggested budgets based on assumptions about Chapter 70 aid and also assumptions about whether it's Program 1 or Program 2 that is being implemented. And the numbers for the required local contributions for the member towns were incorrect on all of them. When I brought that to Mark's attention, I only mentioned one, but I had mentioned later on that if he wanted to change one, he should probably change them all. He did only change one. But I know that anybody else who cares, I just laid out what the situation is. So I believe chart 46 may be the one that was corrected and is now has the correct numbers. And the correct numbers actually come from one of the extra files that Mark provided afterwards. So I just want to make that clear because I don't think it's really, not important. If people notice that things don't look right in those charts, the answer is they don't. But
Okay,
we know,
can
we
you
know what the right
send
numbers
those,
are.
Mike? Mike, can you send what you just said to Greg so that gets captured in these minutes? Just
Yes.
the
Yes,
chart
I
numbers,
certainly can.
just send that and let's make sure we capture that in the minutes, okay?
Sure.
And I see
Okay.
Jane's hand up. Thank you, Jane. And don't forget, you can always talk and get my attention.
Well, you were all talking, so it wasn't necessary yet. I think maybe we need to have that information. If we're going to share this report with people outside of this committee, we need to share the fact that there are some errors in it. Or typos, we can politely call them typos. But if we distribute that document to say the two superintendents, and then they come back to us and say, hey, this report's not right, would have been nice to be upfront with that. I don't
All
know.
right. So I think point well taken. What we can do is put with that report, that's why I asked Mike to make sure it's captured in the minutes, but I can take that, his comments and put it as an addendum and make sure that that's part of the report so people can see that right away. All right?
Yep. Or in the memo that you send out, here's your report. These corrections need to be made on these pages.
You know,
Good.
what might be,
Okay.
what might be good is if I make up new copies of those charts. Just say
Okay.
these reflect the correct numbers.
Okay. Can you and I
That might
talk
be-
then a little bit later?
Sure.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Am I on the right thing? I think I am. So they did change the format, and I think, Greg, give me a nod or shake your head. No, that's up on the website now, correct? And it formatted correctly. Good. All right, grant application. So in a very short amount of time, we did get it in. They asked, they sent the question to Joanne, who forwarded the question to us. It was fairly straightforward question. So we just sent back the portion of the previous grant so they could see the answer to their question was in the previous grant. And we haven't heard anything. We're trying to ameliorate a lot of work or give Joanne a heads up because this is a really busy time of year. So we're hoping that the two subcommittees can be pretty specific about what they'd like to see in the grant. We wrote it broad enough so that we think that pretty much what you are looking for, if it's for a consultant to work directly with you, we might have more than one depending on what the focus is in area. And then what would you like help with? You all have day jobs and you're trying to balance a zillion things with the COVID putting additional responsibilities on you. So my expectation is that the consultants are going to work very closely with the subcommittees and do the work that we need to do along with the subcommittee members. So we're hoping that each subcommittee can start that process, not wait to see if we get the grant or not, because whether we get it or not, I'm thinking that the things you identify that we didn't discover in this round is still going to be some information that we're going to want to have before we make a recommendation to the towns. So, so the grant's in and we're waiting. I'm expecting, unfortunately, maybe the first or second week in March, which is why I want to try to get the ball going now so that we could just then send that on to Joanne because they're the applicant. And so they need to then put an a request for services out right away. And instead of her trying to come up with all that, we can now tailor it, which I don't think we really were able to do before. So, so that's where we are in the grant update. The task for the consultants, I guess I sort of slid into that. I'd like some feedback about what your thoughts are on that as a strategy of having each subcommittee have a meeting or two, maybe talk to constituents, find out what you think is the most pertinent information that you'd like your subcommittees to be working on, and then structure a grant or the language for the grant accordingly. And I put that in my cover letter to kind of outline my thinking so you'd have a chance to, think about that before the meeting. So I'm going to open it up. It doesn't have to be a subcommittee chair, although I'd like to hear from subcommittee chairs as well. Thoughts? Does that sound like a good plan? Do you think we should be doing something different? Reagan, feel free to weigh in on that. If you have other comments that I excluded by omission by accident.
Well, the only thing I would add is we had a list of proposals already, which we chimed in on. I'm not sure if people remember that list. So, I mean, I could go find it right now and share it if that's helpful.
Yeah, that probably would be.
I didn't recall that it had much on curriculum. Is that an
So,
incorrect memory?
It had some things, but I think that's why, Karen, I'm thinking that if the education subcommittee, for example, has some conversations about what they're looking for in curriculum or staffing or programs or philosophy, then that would then come right from the heart of that subcommittee, that this is what we think is the most important thing is to us. And even if it isn't on the list that Greg's talking about, I'm sure it can be covered in the scope of how we worded things so that we can focus on what you think of the most important things are. And the same for the finance, transportation and facilities committee.
Okay. Our chair is Deb, right?
Yeah,
Is that
Deb
correct?
Pote, correct.
but
Deb Pote.
she's not-
I don't see.
She's not with us tonight, right?
I don't see her. No, you're right.
So
I'll
you
shoot
will,
her something to ask for a meeting to,
Good.
get a meeting ASAP. And
good.
so the other members of the subcommittee, can you chime in on your thinking? Does that sound like a plan? And please, Deb, I think you went.
I was going to say I have a class at 6:30, so I have to go, but I think we need to meet as a committee and really firm it down now. It's all kind of been more global rather than more specific. And I think as a committee, we need to sit down and just go, listen, we need to be more specific now. Just a thought.
You mean the subcommittee getting specific about your area?
The subcommittee needs to sit down because we've talked in more global philosophical kind of areas. We really haven't dissected what a program should be and why and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. And feel free to invite other people into that conversation, other stakeholders. I saw somebody's hand up and they disappeared. Who was that?
Steve has a question.
Yeah, my memory was that, okay, let me try to think this through. We had some questions before, primarily about what classes were being offered at this time of each of the schools, what classes were actually running, and we didn't have information about what that was happening. I think that was information that we needed to still get. So then we could look at how do we blend curriculum or develop curriculum from that. But I think we're still looking for some information from the schools or from members from the school anyways, to get that information before moving forward. I don't know if that's anyone else's memory, but
Yeah, I would chime in that was a part of the deeper dive that's being proposed for the next grant. Yeah, I think you're correct, Steve.
okay.
Renee?
Yeah, hi. So that's a similar memory I'm having, but also the rush nature of the last meeting when we did invite other stakeholders. So I think we need a follow-up meeting to glean their feedback. Oh, I don't know, it just you're sharing a screen. we kind of left off, but we didn't get their feedback. I know that some people have reached out to me, but I've not yet gotten that information back to the subcommittee, just because it felt like it was, not clear what next steps were. So I think we have some catch-up work, if you will, to do based on our last meeting and the way it was cut off. So maybe the subcommittee needs to come up with a meeting, invite those folks back and ask for their feedback. I feel like we left that open-ended and not resolved.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was my recollection. Bill?
Yeah, I think to some degree, I think we can work off of the slide, the PowerPoint presentation in terms of ways to go in questioning stuff. But that PowerPoint also needs a lot of cleaning up, starting with the spelling of my name on the second page. But aside from, and some consistency throughout, but otherwise, I agree with Steve. We did talk about needing more information and some simple things, which I'm sure are in the report, are things like how many classrooms are in each complex, when we're talking about where you're going to put certain groups of students. That sort of thing is not present yet. And that would go along with the kinds of courses that are being offered versus ones actually occurring. That's about all I have to say. Unfortunately, we're also quite limited to that 40-minute schedule. So if there's any advice in terms of being able to schedule a longer time, even if it's just an hour, would be helpful. We wouldn't get cut off quite so often, because it's in all of these things, they may be streaming, but it's hard to stream through all you want to talk about in that amount of time. Thanks a lot.
No, yeah, thank you, Bill. I can't see anybody because of
Hey,
the
Alan,
screen.
Alan, Deb Pody just came on, so she might want to chime in about education. I put up this looks like the list of items from the FTF committee. Am I correct, Mike?
Before.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm putting that up there to just refresh your memory in terms of what you wanted in the proposal, or things that you want to address.
I'm not sure I recognize that. I mean, it all looks.
Yeah, I
So,
don't recognize
so,
it.
And some of it looks a little premature. When we talk about things like collective bargaining contracts, I'm not sure what we do with them at this point.
Didn't this
because we
come
aren't-
from, excuse me, Mike, this came from the consultants.
Oh, right. I think you're right. This may have come from the consultants.
Oh,
so,
It's an interesting
Greg,
list to look at. Huh?
yeah, so Greg, let's do this because I trust the respective subcommittees to, get them the list that we did, the list that the consultants did. If any of the subcommittees put things together, let's go to those respective subcommittees, forward whatever we have gleaned from them, and then let's go from there and see what it is that we can start to put together so that we'll be able to put an RFS out, as soon as if we hear in the affirmative. All right, is that, because we could start looking at this as a whole, but it's going to be much more productive and powerful if the subcommittees involve stakeholders. Deb, Jane, go ahead, and I'll want to
Just
talk to
one
Deb.
question. Would it be helpful to us to see the language of the grant application?
good question.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So if we could have
Absolutely.
a copy of that so that we know we're fitting into the parameters that you
Yeah.
established.
so Greg, let's shoot that out to everybody. The section on how we left that really open-ended. And Deb, oh, wait a minute, I guess Mike, and then I want to talk to Deb for a second. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question for the education subcommittee, actually. I've noticed a couple of places mention has been made of differences in educational philosophy between the two districts. And I wonder if I assume that that will need to be explored somehow. Not sure that's appropriate for a consultant to assist with. But I've been struck by the fact that it sort of continues to show up as just, oh, yeah, there are these things that we'll need to work through because there are some differences here. And just thought I'd mention that.
Well, I see it was mentioned in the reports, for instance, comparing the two mathematics programs. One, a more, let's say, progressive, but not in the sense that it's better, but a more recent ordering of how skills are taught in mathematics versus a more traditional one. That's a philosophical difference that's related to curriculum. And then there was one mention to more holistic in one district versus more particular in another. So those are two that I mentioned that were in the consultant's report.
Right, and it occurs to me that if you're going to develop a curriculum, presumably there is some sort of underlying philosophy there, or maybe there isn't. Maybe there are different philosophies for different parts.
Well, yeah,
I wonder if that would need to be addressed in order to develop a curriculum.
I think so. I think it's a bit simplistic to say we should have a choice between a traditional, and we're talking about decades-long tradition in mathematics, calling things geometry, algebra, whatever, versus talking about a holistic or integrated approach, which is more recent. And I think it's simplistic to say, well, the students could have a choice. I think there would have to be a decision as to which way you went.
Deb, you want to weigh in on that, and then I'll catch up on what we talked about before for strategy going forward.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it as insurmountable. I just see it as two different districts having different approaches. One is neither better than the other. I think they're just different, but I don't see it as that obstacle at all. I think you combine districts and you work together to choose one that would work for majority of the population. And I think that's not a, I don't know. I don't think that would be something that we should get hung up on. I know when we had the teachers at our last meeting, there was some talk about heterogeneous and honors classes, and the Turner's Falls teacher, I mean, is Deb Loomer on this? She piped up and said, oh, we don't have honors classes anymore. So they philosophically seem to have embraced the pioneers heterogeneous model where everyone is just all together and there's no special no classes based upon academic skill level. So I think there might be past experience of them being diametrically different, but we didn't hear from the teachers from Turner's that things looked very different from Pioneer. That wasn't the feedback that we got. Is that true, Raina? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think I think it's an area that we need to explore more. But yeah, I didn't hear a lot of I actually heard that there were perceptions of more differences than what actually came up in discussion. So I think
right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the more we hear from our constituents, teachers and parents and students, I think the more we're going to learn about what it's really like to be a student at Pioneer and what is it really like to be a student at Turner's Falls High School and middle school. So I thought it was just interesting. And they didn't give us much feedback, right, Raina? We didn't have any kind of
yeah, we didn't have a lot of time for feedback. We talked a little bit about that earlier, that it would be nice to have them back to another meeting so that they can really provide us with get more feedback and hear more from them.
Right.
Well, I don't disagree with it being not insurmountable. It's not insurmountable, but I think it's important. And yes, having the feedback from the practitioners, the people who are actually doing it, and the students who are actually experiencing it, I think is very important. And it should not be overshadowed by all the other things. It should be a necessary part of it.
So I think we are saying that. And so just to back up a bit for a quick review, the grant's written pretty broad. And so I'm asking, because Joanne has so much going on and we really can't put on her plate, to develop a request for services. The thinking is that each subcommittee would have some meetings and really look at how you would best use consultants, and what information are you looking for. So, you all have really busy schedules, and consultants can do the work that you want them to do along with, you doing the work. So the idea is to, as you're suggesting, Deb, to, hear from the constituents, invite them into the meetings, find out what it is that people are looking for, what information will be helpful in going forward and understanding before the planning board makes a recommendation. So I think we're in a position that we could really tailor the focus for the consultant working for you, working for the subcommittees, and doing what you feel is are the most important things, and getting that information for you. As well as if you say, you're looking for a survey, here's the information that you'd be looking for, then you turn it to them and say, okay, develop this for us and get back to the education subcommittee. We'll look it over and, make revisions. But if they can be in a position to know what it is you want and then deliver that to you as we're working, sort of like a work in progress, I think the results would be a lot better. So that's the only piece that you missed, Deb, before you came on, is that's the strategy we'll go forward with. Greg?
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, I agree with what's being said here. I think that we need to do a much deeper dive into all the program elements, the different areas of study. I'm sure Karen knows in science, there's different tracks that you can set up within your science department. You can have flexibility in terms of doubling up on sciences for students that want to pursue technical fields in college. There are, different types of humanities programs that you can set up. Arts are obviously designed differently. And we don't have a lot of information in regard to how these school districts differ by subject. And when I say by subject, I'm talking about the trajectory of, whether it's 9 through 12. Because I know at my school, we set up our sciences very different than other schools. And we have an international baccalaureate program. So we haven't tailored it to that particular approach. So, I think we need to look at the sort of 6 subject areas and be able to know what the differences are and how that would manifest itself in a combined region.
Mhm.
I would also say, just thinking about the consultants, also thinking about like what's happening right now currently with the efforts at Pioneer to include the sixth grade class, just like a deeper dive in how can we make a middle school that's going to be, perhaps something unique by regionalizing and making it a 6th through 8th grade school, because you've got all these parents, at least in Northfield, who are like in great distress about the plan to bring the sixth graders in the fall. And I guess I feel like I don't want to lose that energy where they're all activated and really engaged, but it would be such a great opportunity for them to like see like some of the work that we're doing and see that, okay, so this change, whether you support it or not, is for this greater effort towards something that could be bigger. And it might not affect their kid, but maybe, a younger sibling, over time. Because I do think there's this opportunity when you recreate something to make something better. And that could be just really exciting to have a middle school with that is unique amongst middle schools in this region, so that people would want to sort of choose in. Yeah, I just think it'd be nice to try to capture those parents who seem now more engaged than parents usually are, at least in Northfield or at Pioneer. If you guys just follow like the news, if you guys know what I'm talking about, I know Raina and Karen and David Young and Alan know what I'm talking about. So I just think it would be a shame to lose them now that they're really focusing on what's happening at Pioneer.
Doesn't the Great Falls Middle School already have sixth grade in their model?
Yes, they do. Right. So that's why, I mean, I was talking a lot about Pioneer, but yeah, so they do, but if we combine them, right. So the idea is that Pioneer would do that also. And this could be that sort of the pathway for something different by combining both of them from sixth to eighth grade. Do you guys know what I'm talking, what I'm sort of getting after is that these parents are really engaged in this sort of fighting the idea that sixth grade is going to go in during a pandemic year, but they're also paying attention. So this could be an exciting time to sort of share a lot about this regionalization effort because they're paying attention already. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
And I wouldn't want to lose that energy. And I would really want to like say, hey, we're hoping that this thing can happen. You're upset about this, but maybe if we look at the larger picture, this could be really exciting, turning something that's really challenging for them into, oh, wow, this good thing coming out of this change.
Right.
And I'm not really in favor of this happening during a pandemic year, so don't get me wrong, but I do see the value of 6th, 7th, 8th being together.
Now,
I see Michelle, and then I saw Karen, and I think that was it. So Michelle, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with Deb. Get the community involved early on, and it could be a win-win for everyone involved. Because if you start losing parents and community members, you've lost a chance to gain some momentum to work on something that could have a great outcome. And I'd be happy to reach out to some of these people. I mean, we just have to decide how we're going to do that.
I wonder if you could invite some representatives from that group to your education subcommittee meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jane, I totally have thought about that. And a couple of them I know that I could reach out and say, hey, do you want to come and just see what some of the plans, well, we don't really have any specific plans, but the concept of regionalization and what it could look like. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also see what Michelle is saying, right? The big fear is that they're all activated and they're all going to school choice out because of all of this. I mean, there's lots of anger, and I don't think people fully understand that. Having experienced a lot of my own ups and downs with Pioneer, I have great sympathy for people just wanting to give up and walk away. And that energy, we have to strike while that energy is up, because it'll go away eventually. And until
Well,
something
yes,
comes
and
up again, you don't want to
my
lose it.
trust would be to, you're interested in education, you're interested in the 6th grade, you must be interested in more than that in the district, and we could use your
Right.
input.
Right.
Exactly.
I-
So yeah,
I
I
would-
think that would be good to
I would
make
like
that
to
happen, to invite them in.
be able to comment. As
All
the other people on the school committee who are on this committee know, I'm on the opposite side of the 6th grade move. But that doesn't influence what Deb is talking about. That's a very good idea. And in trying to respond to each and every email that I get from someone who is upset, and yes, 70% of them have been from Northfield, I always include something about their passion, something about their interest, and in general, asking for their support as we move forward in whatever direction that might be. So I think we need to keep up with the positive and encourage participation. Thanks.
Renee, you had your hand up, but you still wanted to
Yeah,
comment?
I mean, I guess I just, again, as a committee member, just want to put this out. It may or may not be valid at any point, but I feel like inviting those people at this point with the emotional energy that they bring, it may take our work hostage and become about something that our work is not on this committee.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to give them a voice and to hear their stories. And actually, I wonder if the work of our consultants could be hearing more stories and telling stories about people's shared lived experiences, both at Pioneer and Turner's. And again, I have having lived through much of the angst of Pioneer and paying attention now for 3 administrations, I feel like it can become overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to take this work hostage. And I don't mean to say drag down the important work. Like I want it to be about what it was intended to be, which was enriching the ability for communities to have opportunities for their children, because education is such important work that we do as municipalities and communities. And like, again, I don't want it to become something that it's not. Just watching the ebb and flow and feeling the complete emotion of, again, you're trying to take a 10,000 foot view on what this really is. And I think storytelling is important. I think that could be a role of the consultants to gather stories and to maybe tell the great experiences of 6th grade with the Turner's model, or what the heterogeneous grouping meant. And is it really still exist with such small numbers at Pioneer? I may feel like it doesn't, but does it really still exist? So again, let's tell stories with the consultants. Maybe I think they were able to do a little bit of that work with administration, and they put a bit of tone into their report, which got our attention. So maybe they should go out and hear stories and document to help us make decisions. But I don't want it to be sabotaged.
Right.
I totally get what you're saying, Renee. I think what I would try to do is actually I would try to probably talk to the parents first and sort of share a little bit about at least the ed subcommittee and what we're doing, and sort of see if they're interested in just hearing, because it kind of would be us presenting to them about what our vision is. And I certainly wouldn't want it to become a placed event, because that would be a waste of our time. So I think I would try to screen out the people who weren't open to maybe hearing what the vision is. I would want to give people an opportunity to see what it is that we're trying to do, and see that there's other ways of making change that could be really positive and inspiring, right?
Yeah, I see, Bill has his hand up. Let me just, I want to recognize him. I just want to play back in my mind what I think you're saying, Deb. I think you're saying that you're looking at a vision to create like a model middle school, specialized middle school in this area that might draw others in. And I think you're saying that you'd like to hear from parents what opportunities and what kinds of things would they like to see if we were building like a model middle school, for the area, that people might really want to choice into, and getting their ideas and feedback might support that.
Right,
So,
right, because
Okay.
right now, again, we can feel different ways about the sixth grade when they should be entering into the middle school at Pioneer, which, at Pioneer currently, the middle school has its own wing and their own things that they do, unlike at Great Falls, where it's clearly marked as a separate middle school from the high school, even if they're right next to each other. I think the goal is for these parents to sort of wrap their head around the fact that, this would be, if we regionalize, this would be an opportunity for the middle school to be a proper middle school, and there wouldn't be, you know, I don't know if there'll be 18-year-olds in the bus, which they always say, but there'll never be 18-year-olds on the school bus because most kids drive around here. But my point is, there's a lot of fear, and I would really want all of that fear and angst and energy to I want to capture that, because people get tired and they walk away from stuff when they don't get what they want. And what I would want to do is keep them engaged and direct all of that energy, which is now a little negative, but we can make it into something that's positive, by
Bill?
letting them know there's a plan out there that could make the education opportunities here in public schools better, I think. So
Okay.
I talked a lot, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Because your committee, your subcommittee's got a lot of work to be doing. Bill, I'm sorry, I want to get to you.
Thanks a lot. I agree with Renee. I think it's too early, and I think if you did what you're proposing now, it would just turn into a rant session, and we'd sit there and listen to people complaining. And I agree they should have some complaints, and their complaints are legitimate around their children. But I think it's necessary to point out that at Gill Montague, all the kids from Gill in sixth grade have a choice of going to Turner's or staying in Gill for their sixth grade. So everybody in Turner's in Gill Montague does not transition into a 6 to 8 middle school. And that could be a complicating factor in terms of what you're trying to generate. All it would do, in fact, is if Pioneer modeled Gill Montague, is Northfield kids could stay in Northfield. Those who wanted to go to Pioneer Middle School would, and those who don't wouldn't. So I don't think you're accomplishing anything there. But also in the whole educational component of this whole study, personally, I'm not ready to tell anybody that I have a pat plan for what their curriculum is going to be. I think that is beyond our scope at this time. We have a lot more discussion to do with our own committee on a general direction that we want to go. And the direction that we want to go is really about creating a larger region, which is more sustainable. And there are reasons that it's sustainable beyond just how you're going to develop your curriculum, whether it's an inclusive one or, I don't think anybody in 50 years has really been talking about tracked education, even though when you talk about advanced placement or honors, the first thing that comes to mind to a lot of people is, well, you're doing a tracking system and that's no good. We want everybody inclusive in one room type of thing. And that's totally legitimate. Gill Montague has gone through that process in the past. It isn't something that many districts out here haven't done. So, I think we have a lot more discussion to do, and most importantly, Alan, kind of need to know in terms of getting these meetings together, isn't our deadline for this grant coming up pretty soon? Do we have a couple of weeks? Do we have a month? What is the deadline, please?
Well, right now, I'm guessing that we'd still be like a June 30th and see if there would be an extension. I've already asked, would they consider an extension this time? Because I don't want to be applying for grant after grant. I think we need to get what we need to get. And then once we have that information from the consultants, and if we can get that by June 30th, if we need to continue meeting with folks and getting more ideas before a recommendation is made, then our work continues forward for a little bit after that. So to answer your question specifically, right now, I think it's June 30th unless there's an extension.
To submit the grant?
Oh, no, the grant's already been submitted. It was submitted like
Oh,
3
I'm
weeks
so-
ago.
So now we just are looking for how we want to utilize the grant. I
That is
apologize.
correct.
I apologize.
No problem. Yeah, we're just trying to get Bill a little bit in front of the curve to put together what we're looking for. So if we get the green light, we have maybe 2/3 of the RFS already written. We can finalize that and get it to Joanne so she can put out an RFQ from the Gilbert Montague district.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Alan,
Mike.
well, to follow up on Bill's question, then you may have said this earlier, but when do you think we're going to hear about the grant?
I was guessing the first week, and I'm thinking no later than the second week in March.
So the deadline for us to come up with ideas would be ideally the first week in March then. Because we don't want to be
Yes,
waiting
I would
around after we've heard we got the grant, trying to figure out
Right.
what to do with it any more than necessary, right?
I would
Given the
think
time-
by the
given the
second,
timing.
correct. I would think by the second week in March, you would have had a couple of meetings. You'd have a paragraph or two that talks about what you'd be looking for in RFQ, or RFS, and what you'd be looking for deliverables, what specific things you want to do. So those kind of things would come out of your couple of subcommittee meetings, and you'd be basically making the framework for us to put that into language that would go out as an RFS. So I'm piggybacking back what Bill asked, and what you're identifying is, yes, we got a lot to do in the next 30 days, half of this month and a few weeks into March, to be positioned to get something out so we can get a response and move forward.
Yeah, and to be clear, Mike, we don't know. We don't know when they're going to give us an answer. We're going by last year. Last year, it was the same grant application process. And I don't know if you remember, but Joanne heard somewhere around mid to late February, and we had to do the turnaround within about 3 weeks to get the RFS in. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that's kind of how the timeline went. But there's no guarantee that, I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't know. They might not get back to us till the end of March. We just don't know.
Right, but I mean, from our point of view, having something ready by the first week in March was better than not doing that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or the second week in March. Yeah, and if
Okay.
because
I was thinking about,
but-
yeah, Montague's, we're kind of busy in Montague for the next couple of weeks.
Well, and we may hear soon. I mean, I doubt there were a lot of applications. I can think of maybe, Berkshire Regional maybe put in for a grant. Other than that, I don't know of any other school systems that are applying or doing what we're doing. So don't know.
No.
So someone had pointed out that before, Deb, before you came on, that to, obviously to try to get a meeting together sooner than later and figure out what you think is important. Start to put that together. I think that's the major task for each subcommittee.
Hey, Alan, I have my note. I have my collective notes. I just want to let everybody know, I did send out the grant application, the third part of the application, which has the narratives in it. The other two parts are more just signatures and stuff that's not going to be of any interest really. But the narratives is the main thing. So you have that. I also sent a document which I can share right now if you'd like. This is the document that I was actually trying to find. I'll put it up quickly and you can take a look. And these are my notes from the 12/17 meeting. And then our meeting with the consultants on the 13th. And then our meeting on the 15th of January with the superintendents. And these are the ideas that were relayed to us. And some of these you might remember from the December 17th meeting, because these probably came from some of you all.
Are you going to send, did you say you sent that out to everybody?
Already sent, yep. Everybody has them.
If anyone has any comments, say my name because I can't see you. Okay, I guess we're all set then, Greg. And so they'll get all that information and they can review it prior to their meeting and then have some robust conversations.
I just threw it out there in case somebody wanted to add something to it, now, but definitely take it and to your committees and use it as a point of departure, I would guess.
All right, so
Can I just make one?
I guess, Mike?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one quick comment, following up on Bill's comments. Because I don't want to make too much of this, but I also don't want to just say nothing. Bill, you had mentioned sustainability as being a goal of this process, which I completely agree with. But I think it's important, at least in my mind, sustainability of a larger district is not a given. It may be possible. That's part of what we're in the process of finding out. But I don't want people to simply assume that if we make a larger district, then it will be sustainable. And the only question is how to change the educational programs to also make it attractive. Because I at least don't think that's necessarily true. And I think we need to just keep an open mind about that.
Yeah, I would agree. And that I think the state is going to have to realize this is an issue, just not for our considering or doing the work to look at what a 6-town regional would look like. But if they're encouraging others to go forward, they're going to have to go back and look at the formula and look at the hold harmless and look at, is there a punitive result by people doing this? So I think this time, it'll back up what we've pointed out in the last grant. And we definitely are going to need support by the legislators if this is something that they think would benefit kids in the long run and become sustainable. So I would agree that in its present form, the only thing that, well, I shouldn't say the only thing. I mean, I clearly see, I didn't realize Pioneer only had 119 students in 7th and 8th grade. And I kept going over that in my head thinking, geez, how it must be limiting a lot of what, they're trying to do. I don't know what the numbers were or are in Gil Montague. I'd have to go back. But there's got to be, you know, a critical mass in order to, and sustain a critical mass, because I think, as you pointed out, Mike, you don't want to have something that looks sustainable and educationally pretty good, and then, you know, 3 years from now, we're right back to, you know, where we were before, except in a larger district. So I think, you know, that's something that is important to project forward and really make sure we understand. So I don't want you to think, Mike, I didn't hear the concerns that you had raised. I also was pretty clear on the vision that Deb had and how many opportunities you might be able to have with a more of a critical mass in offering programs and also being creative. So we have our work cut out for us. May I move on to the next? It's a little after 7. Did you want to, Mike, while I have you, did you want to give an update? I had an opportunity here for each subcommittee chair to give an update on your last meeting. So would you be willing to give a quick review?
Sure. We did have a meeting on February 2nd, and we met with Joanne Blyer about the transportation report. And the first thing she shared with us was that the report was not what she had wanted it to be. Essentially, the consultants took existing routes and simply combined them rather than looking at how they might change if the 2 districts merge into 1 district. And she said she had a certain amount of back and forth with them, but there were timing issues. And in the end, that's what they produced. It wasn't really what she was looking for. And so one of the things she would like, if we get this grant, would be to try again and see if we can get something that looks a little more at, well, okay, if this were 1 big district, what bus routes would we have starting from scratch? Not just how would it work if we took all the existing routes and simply kept going from 1 school to the other where appropriate. So we didn't, you know, our goal was to understand what the report was telling us. And Lynn, you have your hand up? Oh, I think you're muted.
I didn't want to inject in the middle of your report, but I just did want to have an opportunity to say how impressed I was with her work, her capability, her work ethic, and her helpfulness. She was extraordinary.
Joanne Blyer.
Agreed.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, I agree. I agree. She's very good. So I'd say that the bottom line for our committee is that so far the transportation report has not proven to be that useful to us, but we have hopes for the future, I think. We also talked a little about the facilities reports because Gilmontague is having assessments done of their facilities. And the upshot is that Joanne sent me copies of what they have so far, which is basically assessments of the Hillcrest Elementary School and the Sheffield Elementary School. And they're waiting on Gill. I'm not sure if Gill is in the works for this year or next year, and also the middle school, high school. And I thought I had sent those around to the other members of the committee. I looked today and I don't see that I did. So Greg, I would like to talk to you about, people have had difficulties getting stuff out of Dropbox when I put it there for them. They don't seem to have difficulty getting stuff off of the websites you've set up. And maybe you and I can get together at some point and talk about whether it would be possible for me to send you stuff and you put it on the Strpb website, which is really where it should go anyway, or if there's some way where it could be set up so I could do that, take a little bit off your shoulders. Yeah, I hope that might be an option. So if we could get together on how to do that, then maybe that would solve that problem.
Yeah, that's fine, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless
Jen?
Jane or
Oh.
Lynn has something to add, or Michelle.
The only thing I would, go ahead, Lynn.
I just did want to say, you forwarded to me that series of YouTube things. That was really helpful because I could then bookmark that page and go right there. So that was great and worked much better. I for one have had a lot of trouble with Dropbox doing some pretty nasty stuff. So being able to avoid that would be just wonderful. And that seemed to be an excellent solution.
Right, and you're not the only one, Lynn, so
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jane's had trouble too, so.
Jen, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to add that in regard to the transportation report that we got, Joanne did indicate that if we try to get another report, we would not do it with the same company, if at all possible.
Okay. Jen?
Yes, thank you. I just want to kind of circle back to what you were talking about before, Alan. In the middle school, I was actually the former middle school math teacher at Pioneer, and just wanted to stress the challenges that I'm having just 4 teachers to just 2 grades. It kind of really was challenging when we wanted to, do community projects and kind of build community within the students. It was hard because we only had 2 math classes for 8th grade versus 3 for 7th grade, so class sizes were much larger. I just think combining the 2 districts would just give so many more opportunities to the students and also teachers to collaborate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to move to Deb Cote for a minute and give you a chance to give us an update. Prior to you coming on, people had pointed out that you had, it was a nice presentation that you had given, and that with some more work on that, that would be a good document to work from and add to it. They before you came on, a member didn't get the minutes in time, so we delayed approving the minutes for tonight until she has an opportunity to review them. So we would add that to our next agenda, or you could do it during your meeting, after we have the 48-hour role or requirement, and everyone has a chance to review them. And so if I could back up, Deb, and have you have an opportunity to kind of review your meeting. I know you did a little bit at the full meeting that followed. I don't know if you have other things you'd like to bring to our attention.
No, it was really mostly looking at the slideshow and having our guests sort of look at the idea of combining, because it was really just giving them an opportunity, and because of the length of the presentation, there was no time for feedback, because then we had to get off to go to the next meeting. Because we only gave that meeting an hour, so that was really unfortunate. I think the idea, Raina's idea, of course, is to bring them back, and I think that's what we need to do for our next meeting, is to bring them back and get feedback from them. Hopefully they'll remember important parts of the slideshow, or we can certainly share what we're thinking. We won't be able to address obviously curriculum or mission statements or philosophies, but we can certainly learn from them sort of their perspective, and it'd be nice to hear what they might think the advantages or the challenges would be. So I think that's what we'd like to do for our next meeting. So I don't really have a lot to say about the other meeting, because it really was just going over the slideshow for the teachers. I don't think we had any students. We just had teachers from both districts. Yes, I think we just need to land on a time for our next meeting. And I'll just send an email out to the ed subcommittee and pick a time that we can do that, with the hope that we'll have more constituents, or at least the constituents who were there for the slideshow. And I'm not sure about the slideshow, about sending it out to people. It's not, doesn't have any kind of stamp of approval from anybody. It's just,
Right.
it's just a window into what something could look like based on the consultants and also our own feedback. So that, I mean, I would always be saying that's what it was. It's not an endorsement. It's just information. I'm comfortable
So-
with it the way it is. It's just a slideshow. It's nothing else. But I think it does help people to understand what the possibilities are and also what the rationale is behind wanting to combine districts. I don't know how my committee feels or how everyone else feels, but I'm certainly open to hearing what people have to say about that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna recognize Karen next.
Yeah.
My understanding, however, Deb, is that that's gonna be a work in progress, and as you learn more information, you'd be developing that and including that in the slide presentation.
Of course, it's totally a working document. I just think it helps to highlight the consultant's report. Yeah, I mean, that's all it really is. It's limited. That's
Okay.
not, I'm not saying it's like comprehensive at all. I just think it's easier to see a slideshow than it is to read that whole report. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Karen, you had your hand up?
Yes, since that was my first meeting of that subcommittee, I don't know the background, but I just want to ask if other members of the subcommittee have had a chance to comment on the slideshow. And I know that I didn't because it was such a rushed meeting, as you said. And I do have a couple of questions and suggestions, but I don't know when the right time is to do that. I would certainly like it to be before it went out to other people.
Well, you can make comments, at any time, Karen. I'm happy to have you, send me an email.
Sure, but I think it's something the subcommittee should take up as a group, not just individual conversations. So if we do have another meeting where we invite stakeholders, then maybe we want to meet 10 or 15 minutes before they come on to the meeting so we can have our input and present more of a group understanding of where we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't plan probably on changing the slideshow like in those 10 minutes. The slideshow is really based upon me just cutting and pasting from the consultant's report. It's not something that we created out of whole cloth on our own.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think the whole thrust of it is more based on their program number 2 rather than their program number 1, or based on the fact that we're not going to see a big problem financially with
I'm not the
merging.
finance committee. I'm the education committee. I don't deal with any of the finance.
I know that, but they laid out very carefully in their report, a program 1 that was just if we didn't try to do anything extra, and you appropriately used the term aspirational when you were describing the report to us or the slideshow. But I think it should be highlighted more that it's aspirational. And I didn't really want to take a lot of time tonight to talk about this, which is why I suggested perhaps we could meet and talk about these things just before we have any stakeholders there.
Well, the stakeholders have already seen the slideshow, at least the ones we invited for that last meeting. And I would imagine we'd be inviting back the same people for feedback.
I understand, but I
Okay.
think it's also clear that we need to make it clear that that is the aspirational projection, not necessarily the given. And yes, you took it all from the report, but one portion, the more optimistic portion, let's put it that way.
Well, you can certainly have more than one meeting. You
Yeah.
can certainly have more than one meeting. Renee, you had your hand up. I want to make sure.
Yeah, I was just in listening to Karen's comments, maybe it doesn't matter the order, and I don't know the point of order of what comes first, putting the cart before the horse, but I do think that we did all hear the slideshow together. So if, say, all the participants or any other public that wants to come to the next meeting, just shares their reflection and we build it, because it is a working document, after hearing everybody who heard its feedback, might be better time served. Because I know people who were at that meeting may be ready to comment just on after having time to reflect. So, it doesn't matter to me either, Karen, if we do it as a committee first and then get their feedback, or if we just invite them in and ask their feedback right off. And because it's a working document, whenever it gets changed, or it doesn't because the committee makes decisions. But
Okay.
I don't know what the process is. I'm just
Right.
saying, I do
I
think we
don't
did
know
listen
either.
to it together as a
Mhm.
initial listening for Deb.
Mhm.
I know so many education subcommittee members were not available the night that they made the slideshow. So it was not a comprehensive group who made it to start with. So, but we did have the gift of all those people there. So whatever we glean, the benefit is fine with me.
Oh, it is with me too. I just having gone to one meeting, I don't know the full background, and I will say that as long as everyone gets input, that's a good thing.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. So last year I did a report on our behalf of what had happened in our work. And so a lot of it has to do with the consultant's report. So I don't know if towns are delaying their town meetings because of COVID or for whatever reason, funding. So I will put together, work with the PR committee and get something to go out to all of the towns, whether it's in their annual report or as an addendum or on their website or however they do that, so that they'll have an update of our work in this past year. And it'll be fairly short. I want to, when we met in person, I had these parking lot items that if you had things that, came to mind, and I'm sorry that we kind of got away from that during these Zoom meetings. So I would suggest that we go back to that and you jot your thoughts that you would like to either have an agenda item or hear people's ideas. Again, we're coming against closing very soon. But so I'd like you to maybe email me those so that I can organize them as part of the agenda.
Hey, Alan, I
and-
don't teach at
Yeah.
7:30 tonight. I tried to send you a message. So if we go past 7:30, it's fine. I teach at 8 tonight because it's Tuesday, not Thursday, but some people may have to leave. It's fine. I'm just throwing out,
Okay.
don't do it on my sake, but if people are, ready to leave, that's fine.
All right, well, if we can get an extra 10 minutes in, then that probably would be able to, finish things up. So, I like to have an hour and a half, no more than two to have a meeting. I think they get unproductive after that. So I went over, I'll do something for the annual reports and work with you, Greg and David. The overview of the goals. So on every agenda, we'll have those to sort of remind us of what it is that we're trying to do, what our strategy was. And so when you have an opportunity, when you get the agenda, kind of look at those and see, do they need to be tweaked? Are we missing something? Is there a step that should be included? Please use this as an opportunity to sort of check in. So if you look at that last page on the agenda and you look at what we'd be doing, we did number one, we wrote and submitted a grant. Number two would be coming up, where we'd be assimilating information through our research and working with the consultants. So I'm not going to read each one, but that's our strategy. we sort of developed this over a couple meetings and just added to it, and finally we came up and presented, here's what we think we're doing. All right, I'll go to the next item then. So parking lot items, as we were having these conversations, were there any items that came to mind that you think we should include on an agenda or have discussions on? Okay. If you think of any after, a lot of times my best thinking is after something's over, either on my ride home from the meeting.
Mhm.
So if you think of something, please share that. Greg?
Yeah, Alan, I think we should maybe just return quickly to what we're expecting the subcommittees to do. I mean, obviously, I think they know that we've got to come up with specific proposals for the grant. Should we give a hard deadline on that? Just so that people are clear that we need to set up meetings fairly soon so that we can have our proposals ready and a narrative ready if the grant gets approved?
Well, how do people feel about March 15th? That's a
Uh,
Monday.
That's late. That's late.
Well, yeah, that's one. What are we on now? The 4th? So it's
Alan, are you
3 weeks.
suggesting a meeting, a full board meeting, and then have subcommittee meetings between now and then? Is that what you're?
I'm suggesting that subcommittees meet and start pulling together what their part of the RFS would look like.
I mean, I would prefer that happen in the next 2 weeks. If they can even just set up a meeting for each, the FDF and the education subcommittees, so that we have a list of things at least by March 1st, if possible. We can have a full board meeting after that, but I think in terms of the timeline, what might happen, it might be better to have those lists sooner than later.
How about March 5th? Give them the rest of the week. That Friday.
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right, so we'll look at that as our target date. So the three chairs of the subcommittees have something
Well,
definitive that they can work toward.
since
Right.
I've got most of my subcommittee here, how does March 2nd sound to you guys for a subcommittee meeting at 4 o'clock? And if you want to say you don't know yet, that's fine, but
I'll get back to you.
Yes.
okay. I'll send out an email suggesting that. I
Yes.
know I'm pretty busy next week and the rest of this week. And Tuesdays seem to work best for us, so I'll just toss
Okay.
that out.
Deb, do you have any thoughts of what you might throw out there?
I'm not going to waste time on this. I'm going to send an email out. I'm going to give two options, and my team will respond as they always do. I'm sure I'll see them and make a decision before March 5th.
And,
Perfect.
and I just have to note from the minutes from our last meeting, since so many of us are on the school committee at Pioneer, we voted at our last meeting to meet twice a month rather than once. So we're now meeting on the 2nd and 3rd Thursdays. Those nights are out for a lot of us.
So that's March 11th and March 18th.
Mhm.
So then this coming month.
Yep.
That shouldn't interfere for having to meet before March 5th.
Well, yeah, those would have to be special meetings, and I think there'll be a few, but we'll figure it out.
All right, so where does that put the full committee? Going down to number 9, meeting calendar. Arbitrarily, I picked the 16th and the 18th. The 18th is now, that had happened after I put that date down. The Pioneer date is a soft date on the second one, so we would know if we don't finish the business on the 11th, then we finish it up on the 18th. So we really, that'd be a hard one to plan on. So
Yeah.
what about the
Especially given-
16th? The
Sorry.
16th, which is a Tuesday. Is that good?
Works
There's no
for me.
holiday there, is there, that on a Monday?
Um,
Daylight savings time starts.
That's good.
We could we could celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's the next day.
Irving has their school committee meeting on that Tuesday, but I can always read the notes.
Who just talked? I'm sorry, I missed.
Irving has their school committee on the third Tuesday of every month.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna put that in as a probable. Is that all right with folks?
Fine.
Yeah.
And with the understanding that, you know, you'll do your best to make it, and if you can't, you don't need a note. We just know that something came up and you just couldn't do it.
Alan?
Any other items? Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I still have a question about the grant. Are we going to go out for more than one consultant? Last time we did 2. Are we trying to wrap everything into one package this time, or are we going to think about splitting it depending on what the group comes up with for ideas here? And do you want just a checklist, or do you want us to write the paragraph that goes into the RFS?
The last thing you said is I would like both, a paragraph of what it is you'd be looking for, and then a checklist of what the deliverables would be.
I'm not
On
going
your
to offer
first
you
one,
options anymore.
yeah, and I think the RFP probably should be written that people are doing, you know, they can put in a response to the various pieces. I made a note somewhere. Someone had a really strong interest in background in you know, curriculum and education, had a lot of experience, and you know, that might be a person that expresses an interest in doing that aspect of the work. So I don't think it serves us well if we try to get like one consultant and then it splits up into different phases. I mean, if that's what happens, that's what happens. But I think we ought to have an open door to looking at who's responding and who we think would carry out the objectives of the planning board best. And that's how we would make the award. Greg, do you have a similar thinking, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, we're sort of at the mercy of who puts in for the grant. I mean, that's always the case. I mean, that's one of the problems with these RFPs is that they often have high barriers to entry, which means you wind up with limited amount of organizations that can actually bid on these things. And and that's, you know, that's a different problem. But if we can cast a wider net and get more organizations to take an interest, I think that's great. I think that I think Michelle can also chime in here because I think she has some ideas. So,
Michelle?
No, I was just wondering, did the Collins Institute respond to you? They've been doing a lot with the towns and, you know, in the state. They didn't respond at all?
that does not ring a bell. No, I've not seen their name on any past grants. As far as
I wonder
bidding.
why.
I don't know.
How recently have they been active?
Pardon?
How recently have they been active?
Around here?
Yeah,
Very recent.
so
Very
maybe
recent.
maybe
They-
our grant preceded.
Community-
their interest.
They've been working on a lot of community compact grants.
And
with-
Michelle, it may
with
not be,
DLS.
yeah, and don't, don't necessarily take my word for it. I can check, we can also check with Joanne Blyer.
Okay.
She'll know,
Yeah. Yeah, they've been working with DLS, previously DOR, a lot.
Well, you certainly could bring to the attention that if you know of consultants that might have an interest, at least bring to their attention, so that we, have, I'm wondering how many people don't respond because they're not paying attention or don't see it. I mean, I did reach out to somebody who worked in the Gilmontague district, to, just let her know that we'll be putting out another grant. I think she's working, well, she has a full-time job, so that's not happening. And I'm not soliciting, I'm just making them aware that we're going to be putting out another RFQ. There was someone who spoke at the recent Pioneer committee that seemed to have some expertise as a consultant. I'd have to go back and look at the minutes when they come out to see who that person is, but we certainly, if you know people that do that kind of work, the bottom line is that they've got to be comfortable, and each subcommittee needs to make a selection and be comfortable with who it is that would be getting the work. But most importantly, that you're pretty specific, so so it's clear they're working on your behalf to do the research, get the information, develop documents, surveys, whatever it is that you want them to do. And so we can hit the ground running as quickly as possible if we receive the grant, if we're awarded the grant.
I'm gonna leave because I think I'm starting to lose focus. But I hope you guys all have a good night, and I'll send an email out. Sorry, you guys.
No problem.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we need to cover? Is there a motion then to adjourn? Oh,
Alan?
So moved.
I think Mike had something.
If you don't want to take time now, that's fine. But I do have a suggestion for a parking lot item.
okay.
Uh,
Just tell me what it is and I'll make sure it's on the agenda.
Okay, because I thought other people might have thoughts going ahead. I think it would be useful to have a discussion of what the, let's say, challenges and opportunities for improvement are for the existing districts, and try to map those into what a new district would look like. In other words, how would combining the two districts affect those things? Would they presumably solve some of them? They might have no effect on other ones. Because I think I'm not sure we ever really sat and thought, what problem are we trying to solve here? Other than the kind of general, we want our education to be as good as it possibly can be, and it isn't yet. Okay, but that's kind of vague. So what specifically do we think should be done, needs to be done, could be better? And then how would a new district either do that or not, would it not do that?
I think,
that's something
Mike,
I
if
think
I
that-
could just say, yeah, I think that comes out of the work of the education subcommittee, because, when they look at,
Well, some of it's financial, I think.
Yeah, and you know what it is financial. So I think each subcommittee
Well,
can best address that, because knowing what are we trying to do? So Pioneer, what are they trying to do? Well, we can't do it. We don't have enough student population. What's Gilmontague trying to do? Well, we can do it for this. We can't do it for that. So that's going to come out of the work of the education subcommittee. That'll come out of the work of your work, Mike, with your FTF committee. And
well, I guess
what
I'd like to
is
make sure
and
that
what
it's
you're trying to do.
I guess I'd like to make sure it's on people's radar screens, because I have my own sense of what I think the financial challenges are for the districts, but I don't know what the superintendents think. I don't know what the business managers think. And and I think it would be useful to hear those things.
Yeah.
So you might want to invite them to your meeting. You know,
Mike,
put those out there from
Well,
your
if that's the way
subcommittee.
to
put them
do it,
out,
if that's the way to
Yeah.
do it.
Right?
Yeah, Mike, I see that as being, that is the charge of the next grant. I mean, that, in my mind, that's the crux of it, is to say, look, I mean, the programmatic elements of it. I mean, I know as a teacher that when you get below a certain level in a high school, let's say 200 students, economies of scale really you're battling all sorts of programmatic challenges. You have no flexibility in scheduling. Your extracurriculars are going down the tubes because you cannot field enough students with the teams. You can't have JV and varsity teams. You don't have enough to field the band. All these things become an issue, and they're not the same in each district. But because of the declining enrollment, programmatically they have different challenges. So I totally agree with you. That has to be looked at, and then the financial part is, like to what you're saying, also has to be looked at. What are the challenges for each district, and what is going to be solved by combining them, if anything at
Right.
all? It may solve some issues, but it also may leave some bigger issues unresolved. Yeah.
Well, I think I mean, I'm getting the impression so far, I mean, we're still all learning on this, that what you described is an issue that would be solved, or at least helped greatly, by combining districts. You have more students, the problems that result from not having enough students in each grade would certainly be smaller problems, and maybe they would go away. I guess where I'm coming from is wondering, well, what other problems are the districts facing? Because I think the consultants focused on if you have more students, you're going to have better programs, and that's obviously a good thing. Well, it's hard to argue with that, but I found myself sort of a question in the back of my mind going along is, well, but is that enough? Is that really? I mean, there are other issues in the school, sometimes having to do with culture, sometimes having to do with different types of problems that really don't necessarily relate to the number of students, but maybe more the type of students and other things. And I'm being kind of vague because I don't really know. But
No, and I agree with
why
you.
I'd like to know more.
And take a look at the superintendent's suggestions for the grant, because you do see some differences in there. That's the notes that I sent you in the email. I mean, the one that sticks out in my mind is Gil Montague looking at bilingual education. That's a big, that's a very different thing than what Pioneer has envisioned for itself. So, those are very different things.
And all I'm thinking is that we should have a conversation about that, going forward.
Thanks.
I just thought of something that as you were talking, I mean, are we talking total brick and mortar? I mean, where are we bringing virtual courses into this? Because, the virtual schools, that's how they're being so successful. They can reach out and have different courses without being in a school,
So some of those things would be the topic of conversation, I would assume, at the education subcommittee. Which things can, a combined district offer? Which things might they want to explore reaching out and seeing if it can be hosted somewhere? So I would think anything and everything's on the table. Maybe we could ask consultants to do some research on tried and proven programs that are out there that the school districts can research and maybe make it part of their not alternatives, but options for student participation.
Okay.
Certainly we want to find out from the students what they're interested in. So those are good items for the parking lot. The Deb did go, so people, Renee, people that are on the education subcommittee, can you make a note of that and talk about that as well when you meet? All right, so we sort of had started to have a motion to adjourn, and that supersedes all other
So
motions.
moved.
So that I see it from Mike. Do we have a second?
Second,
All right. I'm gonna do a show of hands instead of roll call. Can I have a show of hands? Okay, so I see Karen, Renee, Mike, Steve, Greg, Michelle, Lynn, Alan, Rena, Bill, and Jane. And I think I got them all. And two for Greg. Thank you, Greg, for getting back from your meeting. And it's nice seeing everyone. Thank you for your participation and your thoughtful comments. They're all welcome. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hey, Alan, did you want to have a follow-up conversation at some point?
Yes, I'll give you a call. I'll give you a
Okay.
call.
And Mike, I'll check in with you about getting you access to the email, website, YouTube.
Sounds
everything.
perfect.
Okay,
Great. Sounds perfect.
great. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.